Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Boss Battle Halfway Recap. We have been through 22 boss battles. That is absolutely amazing. We've got 23 to go. I'm your host, Goron1988, and I am here with. Yep, Cat17. How are you doing, Cat?
The heat, it's turning back on. Help.
Oh no. Cat is melting. Send help. And yeah, I mean, you've been here for a lot of the recap, Cat. How have you felt that this quarter's gone? Because there has been the quarterway recap as well, although we'll just recap it all, really.
So, this quarter has been more surprising than I expected.
Yes, definitely. And I won't go through each of the battles, partly because it's tough to remember about all of them, but we'll say the running standing of each boss. So, shall we get into it?
Yes.
Goma. One win, one draw with an asterisk, and two losses. Uh, Goma isn't seeming to be doing so well. I mean, Goma has a good intelligence and mobility and some decent abilities and hasn't been necessarily facing against some really strong opponents. It's really been a mix, but it seems as though it's going to be tough for Goma to sort of claw some wins here in the future. What do you think about that, Cat?
Goma is suffering a lot from being such an early boss, and the rest of the bosses really being emphasized of being later game bosses in essence.
Yes. I mean, we really tried to mitigate that, but even considering how they are lore-wise, sadly, Goma is just a bit less than most of the bosses here. Um, the one thing I will say, although I'll leave it to you, Cat, because I'm not sure how much I need to hint at it, but that one draw was very interesting on Goma's side. It really was. And that's why, well, yeah. That's why there's
Yeah,
an asterisk on it.
yeah, like it. That one draw, it just really goes based on nature of the combatants that it just has to be that way.
Yep.
There most likely would have been a clear resolution one way or another, not saying which, if the fighters' natures weren't as what they are.
Yeah. Okay, then. Let's move on to King Dodongo. King Dodongo, one win, one draw, four losses. I think that, I think that King Dodongo will probably be continuing down this loss route. King Dodongo has had a fair share of enemies, including some very tough enemies to fight. That one win was very interesting, though, and we didn't necessarily see. Yeah, it took us to really think hard about this to determine that King Dodongo would get the win here. But it was a very interesting situation that King Dodongo was in for that one.
Yeah, I totally imagined the situation the completely opposite way, but then when certain factors were brought to my attention, I was like, oh shit, yeah, I kept forgetting
Yeah,
that there is a big function to the fight.
yeah. But yeah, um, King Dodongo having that low intelligence, that low mobility, I mean, has a decent attack, but I just don't feel like King Dodongo is going to be able to win that much in future. Um, Yeah.
Yeah, King Dodongo really feels like as a boss, as one of those bosses that you would see as a boss in an early game, and then just as a common enemy later in the game. That
Yeah.
doesn't happen in Ocarina of Time, but the Dongos are a quote unquote common enemy in the universe.
Mm. True, true. Baronade, 1 win, 2 draws, 3 losses. Yeah, I remember us having some interesting draws. Baronade has an interesting set of abilities. However, it really, really can't utilize them without Intelligence F. Um, I, I can't recall where the win was with Baronade. I'm considering some possible options against who Baronade fought against. Um, but yeah,
Far as I remember, it's the one you would imagine immediately what it would be. But then when I'm trying to struggle with my memory, I'm like, did that fight already happen?
I don't think it did. I think Baronade might have another win here, and I think I know which one Baronade did fight against and win, which was, well, it was a very interesting battle on that side there. So yeah, anything else to say on Baronade?
Like, Baronade has one of the best skill sets throughout all of the bosses, but being a plant means there is no intelligence to really utilize it, which really negates most of the abilities.
Yeah.
At least with enemies big as most of the combatants in this roster is.
Mm. So, we'll go to Phantom Ganon. Phantom Ganon. Well, I don't know which side it was from the quarter to the halfway recap, but Phantom Ganon has faced against a really tough opponent here. Has gotten that loss. I mean, we're just waiting for more battles, and honestly, I am going to say it, which means it's not going to happen, of course. But I'm really hoping for some fights with Phantom Ganon soon.
Yeah, hopefully we get them more sprinkled in and not all in a row. Which, with my luck, I was expecting that this quarter would have been just one boss from one end to the other.
Mm, yep. So going back, Volvagia getting some wins, getting some losses. Volvagia has a very strong arsenal, and yeah, is proving it here. We'll probably get a few more wins before the end of this. What do you think, Kat?
Yeah, Volvagia, I would see being a top tier fighter in many other games' roster. But there are some very tough combatants in this roster, so I do see Volvagia still being quite high in the end of all things.
Mm. And yep. But yeah, some interesting fights with Volvagia. More in how the battles have played out rather than the actual result. The results have been clear cut for Volvagia. Um, but yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go to Dark Link now. Well, so Dark Link being able to copy the abilities of any other bosses here, um, hasn't been doing so well. The idea of putting Dark Link into this would be to put some interesting matchups, and we have had a few. It's just, as a sort of mini boss here, Darklink is really proving it by not getting wins here.
Yeah, Darkwing is an interesting an interesting combatant. Because again, if we would put him into another game roster, I would see him getting way more wins.
Hmm.
But just the nature how this essence that the Darkling is works, it just it just doesn't show its full greatest power with big kaijus that the list has in most parts.
Yeah. And just going into that a bit more, we've given Dark Link an affinity, darkness affinity of B. There are quite a few enemies that, well, have a darkness affinity higher than that. So yeah, we'll see if Dark Link gets another win in the last 4 matches that they have. And therefore, let's go to Morpher. 0 wins, 2 draws, 2 losses. I mean, Morpher is, yeah. Morpher is just not getting those wins. Intelligence F does not help with Morpher here. And, yeah. Abilities are weaker than a lot of enemies here. With a high intelligence, Morpher could have won a lot better, really.
Yeah, Mofa's abilities are really, really reliant on intelligence, how strong they would be. And sadly, amoebas aren't known to be that smart.
And just going into this, but both draws on Morpher's side are quite interesting, really. So, try to look them up, I guess. Or try to deduce them in your head.
Like, I bet if anybody watching would really think about it, I bet most of the viewers get what the other, like one of the dwarves is. But the other
Yeah.
one, you really have to think about their combatant more than Morpha itself.
Yeah, definitely. So, moving on to Bongo Bongo. I mean, yeah. Bongo Bongo has most of their battles already finished by this point. 6 wins, 0 draws, and 1 loss. And that 1 loss, I mean, I'm gonna put it this way. There was nothing Bongo could do in that loss, really. You know.
Yeah, in that state, if everybody would have the same power level but different skills, and the matchups would still remain the same, I even the strongest would have that one loss there
Yes.
because of one thing which I won't mention, which will be mentioned in all the episodes presenting that certain fighter.
Yeah. Still, Bongo Bongo has good intelligence, good mobility, great health, and good power. And that darkness affinity A just boosts everything up. And the invisibility just means that most beings cannot attack Bongo Bongo. Even though we've sort of theoretically nerfed the invisibility a bit to say that if an enemy has high enough intelligence, they can see something. Even seeing something, it basically stops them from guessing correctly on their hits, and Bongo Bongo, doesn't even have a scratch in a lot of these battles.
Yeah, Bongo Bongo is such an insane beast. Like, I bet that if there would be a poll of what boss in the entire Zelda franchise people would want to get like a spin-off game that would just go into their story, Bongo Bongo would most likely win that poll.
Yeah. Well, talking about another boss that I'd want in my own spin-off game. For me personally, more than Bongo Bongo, although this boss has appeared in various other games. Twin Rover, 2 wins, 0 draws, 1 loss. I mean, Twin Rover getting those wins now. Then again, it's not too surprising. Twin Rover has those elemental attacks. Even just putting it to fire and ice, it's been able to get those wins for them. And it's just due to that really high mobility and that really high intelligence and that decent attack power. What do you think, Kat?
Yeah, just the mobility and intelligence alone would be enough to, get some wins. But then you put in such varied magical capabilities on top of that. That's a very hard package to beat.
Mm. Yeah, and even considering that they squabble with one another, so
Yeah, I would say that if they would work together flawlessly, there is a possibility that there would only be that one loss in their roster in the end. I would give us a spoiler, but the squabbling does give possibilities to the other fighters.
yes, it really does here. So let's move on to Ganon. 2 wins, 0 draws, 0 losses. I mean, we're waiting for the other battles, but I for a lot of these, I don't see Ganon losing. So I don't know what to say. In general, Ganon is just that strong that we're expecting a ton of wins on Ganon's side. What?
Yeah, Ganon just has it all. There's no way cutting through that.
Yeah. I mean,
It would be very embarrassing if the main bad guy of the game would not be the top dog.
well, talking about that, because this is big, because we have something that we don't put in the other bosses boss fights, but we do mark it for themselves. When we got rid of making Ganon the main boss of the game, undestined Ganondorf, without the Triforce of Power, basically just Ganondorf by themselves effectively. Undestined Ganondorf, in one of the battles, Ganon won. Undestined Ganondorf actually lost that battle. And that was, well, this has been one of the shocks of the century here, honestly.
Yeah, the Triforce of Power and just flat out the Destiny itself just makes Ganon a very unbeatable force. But Ganondorf as a character has so much knowledge, skill, and abilities behind himself. It's actually gonna be a fight still for him to beat. Try to beat the rest of the roster.
Yes, and Undestined Ganondorf will probably get quite a few wins here. But that one loss means that Ganondorf is not undefeatable. It means that Ganondorf can lose. So it'll be interesting to see if there are any more losses on Undestined Ganondorf's side.
Indeed.
Okay then. Well, though that's the wins, draws, and losses so far on the halfway point. We're expecting a lot more fights on Twin Rover, Undestined. Sorry, not Twin Rover, Ganon, and Phantom Ganon. So we'll probably see a lot of those coming up. Yeah. I mean, And we've had some really good battles in the past. Like I've said, make sure you go check them out. I'm just trying to think about the future. I mean, I've said this before, so I'm sure you won't say anything now because it will change everything, but is there anything in general you can look forward to that you can say, even if it's not a matchup?
Well, the fact that we have some of the fan favorite and expected fights still ahead is great to see, because I was expecting with Myoark that we would have had all the most interesting and looked forward matches from the get-go, and then just one fighter's matches in a row at the end. So at least we've gone past the worst luck of the draw already.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so we have gotten past the worst of that so far. Yeah, there's not much more for me to say here. I'm looking forward to seeing the results when it's through, and I'm looking forward to the 3/4 recap that we're going to be having. Yeah, this has been fun so far. So, well, thank you, Kat, for being here. I'm, it's been a pleasure, mate. Hmm? Yeah.
It's insane to think that we are halfway already.
Yeah. So, only got half more to go. And yeah. I'm gonna say goodbye from me. And well, Kat, you want to say anything?
Do you hear the voices too?